So whenever React starts the application and starts building a component or updating or receiving prompts or whatever, React is going to do everything in steps inside a component. So these steps are going to be called React Lifecycles. So okay, I've created a class-based component just rendering just some JSX. Just a normal class-based component, nothing magical right here. And I've created a route for this. So since now you know how to use routes, you can create one in your own, And right here, I go to live and I get life cycles. Really, really simple. We know how to do this. So now I'm going to go right here. And okay, I've created the class. React is going to be using this component and then just rendering some JSX. So of course, we are just rendering this, but a lot of things happened before we render something. So React is going to do everything in steps. The first step is going to be get default props, just like that. Whenever React starts the component, it's going to get the default props. That's why whenever we go right here and we say console log props, the props are available for us to use inside the render, because this is the first thing that React is doing. It's setting the default props inside the component. So if I go right here, we have the props that React Router it's passing. Remember that React Router, we get the props. Okay, so that's good. That's the first thing that it's going to do. I'm going to comment this. The second thing that React is going to do is going to set the default state. Right now, we don't have a state, so we're going to do it right now. Set default and then state. This is the second thing that React is going to do. And I'm going to say state equals to something, and then it's going to be equal to title. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to copy and paste it. So this is the second step. And that's why whenever we go to render and we say this, that state, that title is going to be available for us inside this, that state. Okay, so I'm going to say this, that state, that title, just like that. And of course, we are getting the title. And this is the second thing that React is going to do. Then we have a third step that is going to be before render, just like that. And we're going to go back in a minute. So the fourth step is going to be the actual render, just render some JSX. And let me make this right. This is the fourth step. And then we have an additional step that is going to be 5 after JSX. We have access to before and after the render method. Okay, so the before render, we can have access to some default, some built-in methods, just like render. If we think about it, render is a default method from React. Inside here, we have one that is going to be called component will mount. I'm going to say components, just like that, components, and then will, and then mount, open and close. So this component, this code, this method is going to always render before something gets rendered. It's going to get called before we render something. So right here, I'm going to say console log, open and close, and I'm just going to pass this text so we can view it on the screen. And after React is going to render this, React is going to run this first. It's going to render this, and then it's going to run a different method that is going to be called, instead of component will mount, it's going to be components did mount, open and close. And I'm going to do the same thing after JSX, after render. Let's call it after render, makes more sense. I'm going to say console log, open and close, and then after render. Right. So if we go right here, we are getting the life cycles, and then we get 3 before render and 5 after render. So React is going to start the component, is going to set the default props, set the state, is going to run this code, and notice that I'm not running this code, and I'm calling this method. Is running by default. It's going to be executed by React. So we get 3 before rendering. Then it's going to render the JSX. That's why we get life cycles. And then of course we get 5 after render. It's going to go and by default run this component did mount. Good. Okay, that's good. So now notice what happens if I'm going to copy. I'm just going to chop it and put it before the component will mount. We know that JavaScript executes everything in a single order. So if I put it before the component will mount, this is still going to be executed after the component will mount. Still working. So let me do something else. I'm going to go right here. I'm going to say on the component will mount, I'm going to say documents, just like that, document dot, then query selector, and I'm going to select the h3 tag right from the DOM. I'm going to say h3. And then I'm going to change the style. I'm going to change the color to something else. Style, that color, and then I'm going to say that it's going to be equal to red. So let me comment this. Now, if I copy this, let me just reload the application. Oh, I made a mistake. I made a typo. Okay, 1 second. Let me copy this. I'm just going to delete it. And okay, so if I paste this on the browser, we are changing the color of the h3 tag right directly from the DOM. Now, if I run this code on the component will mount, we're going to get an error, just like we were getting before. Going to reload it and cannot read property style of null. So we are trying to change something, the color of something, an h3 tag that doesn't exist. Remember that component will mount will run before the render. So we don't have this inside the DOM just yet. And of course we get the error and nothing gets rendered. Now if I do the same thing, just going to copy and paste on the component did mount, we are doing it because this code was rendered and then this method was executed. That's why we are able to change the color. So we have a lot of more of this. We can do a lot of more things. Let's go to the next section and just keep moving forward this.